So good day, everyone, and welcome to the Animal Welfare Group Nigeria. I'm glad to welcome everybody to today's meeting. I am Iyasiri Oluwashonsera. I'm a George Foster Experience Researcher at the Humboldt University in Germany, and also an Associate Professor at the Department of Animal Physiology, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria. Briefly, Animal Welfare Group Nigeria was founded in 2019 after a gathering of students and researchers who were interested in animal behavior and welfare. And since then, we have grown to 22 affiliations in Nigeria, and we have over 80 members all over the country. We also have members who are Nigerians that are outside the country. And we appreciate the contribution of every member for making this group, sustaining this group till now. The groups, we have three main missions. The first is to increase awareness in animal behavior and welfare in Nigeria, Africa, and the world at large. Secondly, is to collaborate, to network with ourselves. And thirdly, is to educate the public on the importance of animal welfare. The Animal Welfare Group organizes several activities, one of which is the webinars, which is an example is the one you are joining today. So we've organized over 40 webinars, and previous webinars are available on our YouTube channel. So if you have missed any one of them, please check us on YouTube and make use of the videos that are there. We also organize virtual inaugural lectures where we invite senior professors in the field of animal behavior and welfare, and they talk to us, to our group. And hopefully, I think in 2 weeks' time, we'll be having the first for this year. And we also organized a panel discussion last year. And hopefully, if we have time, we may have one more this year. So we are also interested in people sharing their stories as it relates to animals, because this might be an informal way of fostering love for animals. So if you have any encounter with animal, your pet, your farm animal, how deep you were bonded with the animal, if you have any story to share in whatever format, either written form or maybe you can give a presentation, a video presentation, please kindly get in touch with me. And with that, I will hand over to the moderator of today's meeting, Mr. Gideon Ajibola, who will help us introduce our guest speaker and then give the rules for the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yafiri. My name is Gideon Ajibola. I'm a graduate student at the Department of Animal Sciences for the University. I have the honor of presenting to us and introducing our speaker for today, Dr. Durosaro Samuel Olutunde. Dr. Durosaro is a lecturer and researcher at the Department of Animal Breeding and Genetics, the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Ogun State, Nigeria, where he teaches undergraduate and postgraduate courses in animal breeding, genetics, and behavior. He received the World Bank Center of Excellence in Agricultural Development and Sustainable Environment Scholarship to pursue his PhD in 2014. He also won a postdoctoral scholarship from Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Nigeria, to conduct research on turkey genetics, behavior, and welfare at the Department of Animal Sciences, Oregon University, United States of America, between May 16, 2022 and March 31st, 2023. He is a member of the university's Federation for Animal Welfare, International Society of Applied Ethology, and Genetic Society of Nigeria. His research interests include livestock genetics, behavior, and welfare. He has published more than 30 articles in reputable journals. He loves working on the behavioral genetics of poultry species, especially turkeys and chickens. He is interested in studying how genes, breed, genotype, sex, and genomic regions affect animal behavior. He is also interested in using genetics to assess positive affective states in poultry species. And today we'll be presenting to us vocalization as a veritable tool to assess animal welfare, status, and origin. Thank you, dear. The floor is yours, sir.
This will be my fourth presentation on Animal Welfare Group Nigeria, presentation number 4. The first one was on effect of feather color on fair behavior in turkeys. The second one was on effect of breed on fair behavior in turkeys. The third one was on contributions of gene to animal behavior. And this fourth one is about vocalization in farm animals. My name is Durosaro Olutunde. I work with the Department of Animal Breeding and Genetics, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Ogun State, Nigeria. I'm involved in teaching and research, and I teach courses that are related to animal breeding, genetics, and behavior. Today, I'll be talking about vocalization as a veritable tool to assess animal welfare, status, and origin. And I'll be talking about 5 major things. I will talk about vocalization as a form of communication in animals. Don't forget that humans will also communicate, and our communication is in form of verbal and non-verbal communication. I will talk about vocalization in farm animals. I will talk about sound features and tools for analyzing vocalization. I will talk about sound features because anytime I tell people that I conduct research on animal behavior, they ask me, you go to the farm, you install cameras, and you collect video. After video, what next? And I always tell them, after video, we watch the videos and we extract our data. So from sound or vocalization of animal, there are some data that can be extracted. And these data are known as sound features. I will be talking about how to use vocalization to assess animal welfare. And lastly, I will also talk about using vocalization to assess animal status and ancestry. So I will start by talking about vocalization as a form of animal communication. When we talk about communication, we are talking about transmission of information from one animal to another animal, causing some kind of change in the receiving animal. So when we talk about communication, there must be transmission of information. And the information can be in form of anything. And there must be a sender, the sending animal. There must be a medium through which the animal will transmit the information, and there must be a receiver. So the receiving animal can become specific. That is the animal of the same species. It can be heterospecific, which can be animal of different species. And it can also be handlers. When animals are hungry, they tend to peck the feeders, signaling to the handlers that they are hungry. So communication can be from animal to animal of the same species, animal to animal of different species, then animal to handlers. But in the definition of communication, there's always a controversy. And the controversy is it still communication if the receiver does not respond? Maybe we may discuss that at the end of the presentation. When animals communicate, they communicate using 4 signals. And these 4 signals are visual, chemical, tactile, and vocalization. So before I talk about vocalization, let's quickly talk about the other signals used by animals to communicate. So the first one is visual, also known as scene signals. And it includes animal gestures, facial expression, body postures, and coloration. For example, if a male animal wants to mate the female, the male can display a form of color to attract the female. That is a visual form of communication. Then we also have chemicals known as pheromones. These are airborne chemicals that are released in the urine, the feces, and they can also be secreted from some glands. And they are always perceived by olfactory system. And these chemicals can elicit behavioral and endocrine changes. If you look at goats, the buck can secrete some chemicals to attract females that are on heat to mate. And sometimes in rams, these chemicals can also induce heat, that is estrus in the heels. So the third one is touch or tactile. That involves animal using touch or body contact to communicate. From this picture, you can see this cow and the calf. Look at the kind of bond, the kind of grooming. This is a form of communication. And this communication is telling, the cow is telling the calf that there is a bond between the two. And the last one is the auditory, also known as vocalization. And this involves the use of sound to convey information. And this is very common in birds, avian species. So what is vocalization? Vocalizations are sounds that are produced by animals that can provide information about the internal state or likelihood of subsequent action. So if we look at the component of this definition, so if it is vocalization, it must involve sound. It must be produced by an animal. And in that vocalization, there is information. And that information can change the internal state of the receiver. It can also lead to some subsequent action. For example, an animal can signal alarm call in the presence of predators, which will make the receivers to hide, run away, or freeze. Or it may, the receiver may want to attack the predator. That is an action. Then that is to the animals. To the handlers, the handlers can use animal vocalization to assess the state of health of the animals. That's number one. To assess their physiology, to know about their ancestry, and to also check their welfare and their needs. So what are the uses of vocalization in animals? Animals use vocalization to convey warning. So in the presence of predators, the animals can signal an alarm call so that all the conspecifics and sometimes the heterospecifics can go and hide or run away. They also use it to attract mates. Then they use it to defend their territories. Then they also use vocalization to coordinate group behavior, such as when they want to acquire food, when they want to maintain group cohesion. And sometimes animals use their vocalization to announce a new day. And we see that in cocks very early in the morning. You see them crowing. Around 4:30 a.m. in my house, there's always a cock that crows. And I've noticed this cock for more than 3 months. And this cock is very consistent. And this cock crows around 4:30 a.m. every day. Sometimes they use vocalization for pleasure. And you find this in some birds known as songbirds. Example is a nightingale. They sing melodious songs. And when they don't sing, it's possible there is presence of predator. That's number one. And there can also be when they have issues with their emotion, when there is displeasure. Then our vocalizations are also used to care for youngs. You see animals making some feed calls to signal to the young ones that there is feed. Then it is also used for bonding. For example, if animals are grazing, cow, cattle, sheep, and goats, when they are grazing, and one is going astray, and it doesn't know where the others are, the other one can signal to that animal to know their whereabouts. Then vocalization is also used to display emotion. So what are the advantages of vocalization over the other three cues or over the other three signals? The other signals are chemicals, visual, and tactile. So the first advantage of vocalization over the other three is that sound travels relatively well across obstacles. depending on its frequency. So even if there is obstacle between two animals, sound will still travel. So the receiver will still be able to decipher the information that the sender is trying to pass to him or her. This is not possible if it is visual signal. Then the second advantage of vocalization over the other three signals is that conspecifics don't need to be close to each other to perceive information encoded in vocalization. The animal may be far away from each other. And if the sender sends an information, the receiver receives every sound feature inside that vocalization. Then the third one is that acoustic structures of vocalization can change very quickly when situation changes. So if there's a sudden change in situation, maybe environment changes, then vocalization can change very quickly, unlike other ones where there can be such rapid changes. So when we talk about vocalization, we talk about sound. And sound, how are they produced? It's very simple. Vocalizations are produced through vibration of some organs. So when these organs vibrate, there will be production of sound wave. And these organs include sirens in birds, blowholes in whale, and larynx in some mammals. So whenever these organs vibrate, there's production of sound wave. And they have to pass through some medium before the receivers can hear. So according to Tize 1994, in production of sound, there is source filter theory, which is this. Vocalization is generated at a source, and that source can be larynx, can be blowhole, or can be sirens in bed. And whenever they are produced, they must be filtered. So in some mammals, the larynx will transform the airflow into sound waves. Then the sound wave will be filtered by some other part of the body, such as the tongue, the jaw, the teeth, and the nostril. And in the production of vocalization of sound, there are 4 systems that play a major role. And these 4 systems are articulation, resonance, respiration, and phonation. For respiration, whenever there is a respiratory problem, then the vocalization will be distorted. Then resonance, that has to do with the medium where the sound wave will pass through. So there can be reverberation of sound and some other things. So let's look at some common vocalizations in farm animals. In pig, we have around 23 vocalizations. In chicken, we have about 30. So let's talk about some vocalizations in chickens. We have around 30, but I will talk about 7. So there is what we call feed call, and this is used by a chicken to call another chicken for the presence of feed. That is feed call. Then there is alarm call. Whenever there is danger, the chicken can signal to another chicken that there is danger, so that the other chicken will go and hide or they run away. Then there is crowing. Crowing is found or expressed by the cocks. And what are the uses of crowing? Crowing is used to advertise ownership of territory. There is always a cock that crows first in the morning. Then crowing is also used to indicate safety for the flock. One thing about crowing is this: whenever the environment is not safe, cocks don't crow. Cock also use crowing to attract hens to mate, and they also use it to announce daybreak. Don't forget I said that there is a particular cock around my house that crows around 4:30 a.m. every morning to announce daybreak to human beings, to conspecifics and heterospecifics. Then there is another one known as distress call, and this is very common in young chickens, and this is used when they are isolated. they want to reunite with their conspecifics. So they make this distress call. Then there is cackle or cackling, which is the form of vocalization that is produced after an hen lays. Then there is gake. Gake is used to indicate frustration, and this is always made by hens. Then there is quack. Quack is done whenever there is a pain, especially when there is pecking. When a chicken pecks another chicken, the victim make this squawk to indicate that the pecking is painful. So let's talk about vocalization in goats. Majorly, we have two types of vocalization in goats, which are open mouth bleats and closed mouth bleats. But there are some other two. We have gobbling, which is displayed by the buck during, is a form of sexual behavior. Then we have the alarm snort, which is rarely expressed in goats. For the open mouth bleats, they express this kind of vocalization whenever they are in pain. So they make sound and they open their mouth. So whenever they are in pain and they are also in negative situation, they do open mouth, they bleat with open mouth. Then sometimes during food anticipation, they do this. But for the closed mouth bleating is done whenever the goats are in positive affective states. Then sheep, they are very similar to goats. They also have what we call open mouth and closed mouth bleating. So for the open mouth, it has high frequency. And this is done whenever there is negative situations such as social isolation. But sometimes in positive situations, they also use this vocalization, especially when there is social reunion after separation. Then for the closed mouth, also known as low frequency vocalization, it is also called rumbling or rumbles, and it is expressed by hues in the presence of alarm. So it's a form of contact and recognition signal, and it strengthens the bond between you and lamb. For cattle, originally the vocalization of cattle is built from 4 syllables, which are meh. There is me sound, the 2 N, and the H sound. The me sound is produced from a closed mouth. Then both N syllables are produced with open mouth. But the difference between the N syllables is their frequency. The frequency of one is twice the frequency of the other one. Then the last syllable, which is H syllable, can be produced with both open and closed mouth. So for the mean syllable or mean note, is a form of contact vocalization between herd members, which can be between cow and calf. It is also used when there is food frustration. Then for the man vocalization, when these bovid, whenever they make vocalization, what you hear is man. That is man sound. So the men vocalization are produced in similar situations as the mean vocalization. However, the arousal of the stimulus is often higher in men sound. So these are the major forms of vocalization in sheep, in goats, and in cattle, and in chickens. Don't forget that we record sound as a form of vocalization. So this sound has a lot of components. There are many, but I will just talk about 3 or 4 here. So, and these components are what we call sound features, which can be number of vocalization, it can be number of syllables or notes. Some people call it syllables notes, but I prefer to call it syllables. There is frequency of sound, there is pitch, there is amplitude, there is duration. For people that play musical instruments, they are conversant or they are aware of all these sound features. The other ones are goodness of pitch. There is AM. AM is amplitude modulation. There is FM, that is frequency modulation. AM and FM are just signal methods. And this is talking about the frequency of the vocalization. And it's also talking about the distance that the vocalization can travel. Then we have the entropy. Entropy is talking about, is just about the measure of information that is lost in vocalization, which can be due to high temperature and some other factors. So let's talk about these features one by one. So what is a syllable? A syllable is a unit of sound. So it's a single segment of uninterrupted sound that is typically produced when a single pulse of air from the lung is produced. For example, when you have ta-ta, that is 2 syllables. Ta is 1 syllable. The other ta is the second syllable. So ta-ta, that is 2 syllables. Then we have frequency. Don't forget I said that vocalization is produced by vibration of some organs like sirens and larynx, sirens in birds and larynx in mammals. So vibrating objects or vibrating organs, they produce sound. And this sound will travel through a medium. And whenever this sound is traveling through a medium, there is vibration or movement of the medium. And this movement is back and forth movement. So the frequency of a sound wave refers to how often the particles of the medium vibrate when a wave passes through the medium. So it's a number of complete back and forth vibration of the particles of the medium through which sound passes per unit of time. So what is amplitude? Amplitude is just the strength of sound wave, and it is perceived as loudness or volume. So, and it is measured in decibel. So what is pitch? Pitch has to do with fastness and slowness of vocalization. It's talking about the sensation of the frequency of the sound. Don't forget that we have some songs that whenever you listen to them, you fall asleep. That has to do with the pitch. So it's talking about sensation of that sound. So when we talk about vocalization, we have a lot of tools that can be used to analyze vocalization in animals. But these 3 are very common: the Raven Light, SAP, then Audacity. For SAP sound analysis program is free. The Raven Light is free for people from developing country. The Audacity is also free. So all these 3 software can be used to measure sound features. For SAP, we can get the duration of vocalization from it, the amplitude, the pitch, the peak frequency, goodness of the vocalization, FM, AM, and the entropy. So how can we use vocalization to assess animal welfare? So before I talk about this, let's talk briefly about animal welfare. Animal welfare is how the animal is coping with its environment. And when we talk about environment, it can be anything. It can be temperature, it can be humidity, it can be day length, it can be wind, oxygen, ammonia, and so many other things. So there is always animal-animal interaction. There is animal-human interaction. There is animal-soil interaction. There is animal-air interaction. There is also animal-machine interaction. So how well the animal is able to cope with the environment is known as animal welfare. And animal welfare has its own indicators. So the indicators of good welfare are good health, good nutrition, safety, ability of the animal to express its natural behavior, and freedom from pain and distress. So if you want to measure animal welfare, we can look at the behavior of the animal, we can look at the productivity and some physiological response. But today I will talk about behavior, which is, and vocalization is a form of behavior. So I'll try and link vocalization with disease. Don't forget that one of the 5 freedom of animal is freedom from disease. So in some experiments that have been carried out, respiratory disease in chicken, such as bronchitis and some other ones, they can damage the sinus and trachea. Don't forget that I said that 4 systems play a major role in vocalization. We have the phonation, we have the articulation, we have the resonance, and we have the respiration. So once the respiration is distorted, then the vocalization will be affected. And once the vocalization is affected, it means there is something wrong with the welfare of that animal. So when there is respiratory disease, the animal is not free from disease. Then we can use vocalization produced by animal to know whether the animal is free from disease or not, especially respiratory disease. So some diseases affect the respiratory system of the animal. And when they affect the respiratory system, they also affect animal vocalization. For example, these authors, Mandavian et al. In 2021, they used vocalization to assess the health of broiler chicken. So they have 3 groups. They have the healthy birds, the ones that are infected with bronchitis, and the ones that are infected with Newcastle disease. And at the end of the day, they look at 5 sound features, which are energy of male subbands. They look at spectral flatness. They look at wavelet entropy and wavelet energy. And out of all these 5 acoustic properties, wavelet entropy and Kestrel coefficient of the bird vocalization can be used to detect birds suffering from bronchitis and Newcastle disease. So what does this mean? It means that if an animal is suffering from bronchitis and Newcastle disease, and the vocalization of the animal is recorded, we can use some sound properties such as wavelet entropy and Kestrel coefficient to differentiate the animals that are healthy and the ones that have disease. Then there is another relationship. There is a relationship between vocalization and stress. In an experiment conducted by Van den Helver et al. In 2022, these researchers, they tried to induce startling stress in laying bed by opening an umbrella, which caused flight response. And they recorded the sound of this bird before they induced this stress and after they have induced the stress. And they discovered that after they induced the stress, all the birds, they kept quiet. There was no vocalization. So we can use vocalization to know whether a bird is stressed or not. Then we can also use vocalization to assess thermal comfort, especially in chicken. Specific chicken vocalizations such as alarm call, squawk, and gacker calls are correlated with stressful events. So we could monitor stress in chicken using all these calls. So Du et al. In 2020 subjected laying hens to 4 thermal environments: the comfort environment, the alert zone, the danger zone, and emergency zone. And they measure the vocalization of the birds and group this vocalization into gacker, alarm, squawk, and others. And at the end of the day, they discovered that gacker sound can predict thermal comfort in laying hens 100% correctly. Then squawk sound can predict thermal comfort in laying hens with precision of 97.2%. While alarm call can predict thermal comfort in laying hens with precision of 96.5%. So how can we assess the status of an animal using vocalization? For example, if an animal is on heat, if an animal is on estrus, we can use the vocalization of that animal to know if that animal is on heat. So vocalization number can be a solution to help heat detection problems. For example, Gonku and Boscut examine vocalization bouts in 3 categories of cow: pro-estrus cows, estrus cows, and post-estrus cows. And they look at the vocalization of these cows from February to May in 2017. And at the end of the day, they discovered that for cows that are on heat, they vocalize 6,146 times between February and May. The ones that are not on heat, they vocalize 1,267 times and 2,400 times. So pro-estrus cows, they vocalize 1,267 cows. 1,267 times. The post-ischius cows, they vocalize 2,400 times. So the number of vocalization produced by a cow can be used to determine if those cows are on it or not. So how can we assess animal origin and age using vocalization? So Abeokuta in 2020 correlated turkey sound with their age and body weight. And these researchers, they use 570 hybrid converter turkeys, conducted 4 trials, and evaluated 2,200 sounds. And at the end of the day, they have some regression equations where they use the peak frequency of the vocalization to predict the age of the turkeys. And the coefficient of determination, which talks about the reliability of that regression equation, was very high, ranging from 0.97 to 0.99. For the relationship between peak frequency of vocalization and age, they have a regression equation for the pool value of y equals to minus 15.6x plus 3118, where y will be the age of the turkeys in days, and x is the peak frequency of their vocalization. So they use this to predict the age of the turkeys from the peak frequency of the vocalization. They also use peak frequency to predict the body weight of the turkeys. And they have a pool equation of y equals to minus 8.75x, where x is peak frequency of vocalization and y is the body weight. So the pool regression equation is y equals to minus 8.75x plus 24,550. Another interesting thing about vocalization is that it can be used to decipher the ancestry of an animal. Basically, in genetics, we use a mitochondrial D loop and some other genes to plot phylogenetic tree. But sound features can also be used to plot phylogenetic tree to know the ancestry or the origin of animals. And this was demonstrated by Colliers in 1987. Colliers in 1987 recorded and analyzed crows of jungle fowls for 6 years, and they used cock. And we have 4 species of jungle fowl. We have the red jungle fowl, we have gray jungle fowl, the Ceylon, that is from Sri Lanka, and we have the green jungle fowl. And at the end of the day, when Colliers analyzed the vocalization of these 4 species of jungle fowl, he found out that the red jungle fowl had 4 notes or 4 syllables. And most energy of this vocalization is in the 3rd syllable. And the sound of red jungle fowl cock is kukadu-do. That is for red jungle fowl. Then for the gray jungle fowl has 4 syllables of 4 notes. And the most energy is in the 2nd note. And the sound of gray jungle fowl is different from that of red jungle fowl. So the sound of gray jungle fowl is kukayakayakuk. So I wish I have all those sounds so that people can listen to them. Then for the Sri Lanka jungle fowl, instead of 4 notes, they have 3 notes. And their sound is kujoijose. That is their own vocalization when they crow. Then for the green jungle fowl, it has 2 syllables and it is of higher pitch. And the conclusion about Colliers' experiment is that the crowing of the species of jungle fowl differs in the number of notes, in the length of crowing, in the accent on different notes, structure and pitch of notes, and interval between notes. So we have talked about the good of vocalization. It has its own limits. And what are these limits? The first limit is that when we want to measure vocalization, it is very difficult in group housing method. So we need to isolate some animals when we want to record individual vocalization, which is not too good for the animal because this can lead to negative welfare and frustration. That's number one. Then number two is the issue of all this background noise. In some farms, there are some other electrical components that can make noise, like the fan and some other machines. So as the researcher is recording the vocalization of the animal, the researcher is also recording all those background noise. And the effect of the background noise should be removed when analyzing vocalization, which is always difficult to do. Then another thing is that there is no best stand feature for analysis. Don't forget that I said there is pitch, there is frequency, there is amplitude, there is peak frequency, there is AM, there is FM, there is entropy, there is duration. So which one is the best to pick is left to the researcher. And another funny thing is that some animals can imitate the vocalization of other animals. You find that in lyre birds. They can imitate anything. So if an animal is sick, and other animal that is not sick is imitating the vocalization of the sick animal, then the researcher will have problem in assessing the welfare of the animal that is sick and the animal that is not sick. So another funny thing is one vocalization can be used in two or more situations. So a vocalization can be used when an animal is frustrated, can also be used when the animal is not frustrated. So these are the limitations of vocalization. So I will conclude my presentation by saying 3 things. Vocalizations can be recorded non-invasively, and it varies in several quantitative and qualitative dimensions. Then vocalization reflects a lot of information about animal, including the welfare status, the physiological status, the age, and ancestry of the animal. So its usage should therefore be encouraged, so that instead of using all these invasive methods, vocalization, which is non-invasive, can be used. And thank you for listening to my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Durosaro, for that beautiful presentation. So we would love to accommodate questions and present them to our presenter. Thank you very much. So probably I should open the floor. So what should be the way forward, since vocalization alone might be difficult to assess welfare on its own, animal welfare?
Thank you for that question. There is no one best method. It should be combined with some other methods. So as you are using vocalization, you can also check the physiological status of the animal to confirm or validate the results that you have from vocalization. For example, if you are checking disease, you can also look at antibody titer of that animal to confirm the results from vocalization.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We are expecting more questions in the chat box. But
okay, I could also engage in more.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned in the introduction that some particular clocks do crow at a particular time. So do they have internal clock? Because if they depend on only the sun might come out some days, might not come. How do they keep up with this reading?
I think they have this biological rhythm that makes them to know the time of the day. It's more than the photoperiod, because once it is the ones I notice, once it is 4:30, either you have a long day or short day, it's going to crow. So don't also forget that in Yoruba land, the Yoruba tribe of Nigeria, they said before the invention of clock, it is cock that wake people up. So irrespective of the length of the day, they have this biological rhythm that tells them this is the time of the day. And they serve as a form of biological clock or biological alarm to humans.
Thank you very much, sir. So we have a question here from Kolade Oliyide. Could vocalizations translate to noise, particularly when they overlap between animals, individuals? And are all vocalizations innate?
So vocalizations, they are innate, but it is shaped by experience. So the animals have the tendency to vocalize, but they also learn it from their parents. So it is innate, but it is shaped by experience. So that is why if you put a particular, I want to use an illustration now. In humans, for example, if you put a baby where people don't talk, that baby will never talk. Although the baby has the tendency to talk, but it is going to be shaped by environment and learning and experience. Then for overlapping, there can be noise. That's why I said in one of the limitations that sometimes you will need to isolate animals to record their vocalization, which is not too good. But inside the noise, there is always an information that each animal is passing. It's like the normal music that we hear. If the volume is too loud, it becomes noise. But it doesn't make it less of sound. It is sound. But the receiver has problem in getting the information that is passed. So
thank you very much, sir. We still have 2 more questions for now. Do you think that the time of day will affect the sounds made by an animal?
if I understand that question very well, because it is innate and some vocalizations are used for survival. Example is alarm call. So time of the day does not have effect on it. Because for the animal to survive, it must be able to produce that alarm call very well and accurately at every point in time. That is to my understanding.
Thank you very much.
If time of the day we affect vocalization, it will not be for vocalizations that are needed for survival or fitness. That is my understanding.
Okay, thank
For
you very
example,
much.
if there's a predator in the morning and there's a predator in the night, the alarm call must be the same for the animal to survive or to call attention of other animals.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sorry for interrupting you. Also, does vocalization have any relationship with the location of the animal?
Yes. Yes. That will be in terms of sound features. That will be in form of sound features. The way the cock crow. Let's look at the jungle fowls, for example. The Sri Lanka cocks, the way they crow is different from the ones from India. So it is possible. If you want to look at it in that angle. If you look at what I presented, some of them, they have 4 syllables. Some have 2, and some have 3. For the Ceylon jungle fowl, you find them in Sri Lanka, and they don't crow the way the ones in Java and India crow. So it is possible location has effect on vocalization.
That is ayam pelung.
Mhm.
Ayam pelung that, and ayam means chicken, and pelung is some kind of a tribe of chicken in Indonesia, indigenous chicken in Indonesia that has a long croak like 3 minutes. Like the sound is almost 3 minutes. You all can find it in YouTube, because we also have them as the contest in Indonesia, especially in West Java province, because it is not only about the chickens, it's also part of our culture because we are having so many diversity in chickens, including the type of the roosters and also including the type of the vocalization. So yeah, and I think that they are all available on YouTube, and also you can see the hybrid between the jungle fowl and also the local chickens, that they have different sounds if we want to compare them. That's
Thank
it.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there any vocalization made by laying birds before laying? And the other aspect of the question is there any relationship between the vocalization and laying tendency of the bird?
In terms of number of egg laid or what?
Successfully performing the laying behavior oviposition.
I didn't get the question very well.
So is there any relationship between the vocalization before laying and the oviposition in itself?
That I don't know. If it has to do with that has to do with the production of some hormones and some other things. I don't have answer to that.
Okay, Weto wants to say something. Maybe he can provide an answer. But I know that prior to laying, especially when they're still trying to look for the nesting site, if they find it difficult to find the convenient place, they become frustrated, and they also give
yes,
a kind of frustration sound. So Weto, please, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I work with poultry, and I know that prior to laying, they make a sound, and after laying, they make a sound. If you get there, you will see that after they make another sound, they have the eggs. So I know there's a relationship between the vocalization and the oviposition. Before and after laying, they make two different sounds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
When there is frustration, if they cannot locate the nesting sites easily, they gake. That is gake. But after they have laid, they kaku. Yeah. Kaku is after laying.
Thank you for the insight, sir. And the last question here from Oluwaseun Ojelade. Do you think it is more difficult to get the sounds of some animals more than the others? For instance, it seems it will be easier to get the sounds of terrestrial animals than the aquatic animals.
I can talk about the terrestrial animals. Almost all of them that I know vocalize. But we also have some scientists like Sabiet that work on vocalization in aquatic animals. So it's easier to get for terrestrial because they are on land, they are easier to locate. But in the water, the fish will also vocalize. But I don't know much about their vocalization because I'm not a fish person. But they also vocalize. So it is easier to get for the ones on the land. For the ones inside water, there will be some tools that can be used to trap their vocalization also. That I'm very sure of.
Thank you very much. I remember that I read a paper on whales, marine mammals, and they recorded their clicks.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's one more question here. Could there be communication across species through vocalizations?
Across?
Species.
Yes. The same species? Yes. Different species? Yes. Animal to handler? Yes. But I said something about the controversy. The controversy is this. When an animal vocalizes or when animal communicates and there is no response, is this still vocalization? That is always the controversy behind communication. For example, we have some animals that mimic feed call, and they are predators. So the receiving animals know that these are predators. They don't respond. It's still communication because there is the change in the receiver. They know this thing that sounds like feed call is alarm call. So there is always a controversy in the definition of communication.
Thank you very much. And I will hand you over to Dr. Yasiri.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining our meeting. And I want to remind everybody that one of our missions is to foster collaboration. We are here to learn. We are here to also meet people. We are here to discuss. We are here to collaborate. We are here, to see how we can work together. That is the best opportunity that we can give ourselves. So if you are given the opportunity to turn on your video or to interact, I think you should make a good use of it, because it may be difficult for somebody in Calabar to meet somebody in Abeokuta. Just, you have to travel, but this is just an online opportunity, and I believe you should be able to make use of this opportunity as much as you can. And like I dropped in the chat box, we have our social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And also we have the YouTube channel. Okay, Dr. Yebanji, please unmute. Okay, if you have any comment for the presenter, kindly indicate by using the raise of hand button, and I will unmute you. Okay, Dr. Yebanji.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yasiri, for calling on me. Well done. Thank you, Dr. Durosaro, for the beautiful presentation. I was almost lost. I thought I was in a physics class. The way he was explaining the sounds, how it moves, the waves, the decibel, the amplification, the pitch, the tone. In fact, very interesting talk. I was just wondering, he was talking about sometimes the animals will open mouth and it might mean two different things. How do you differentiate between, because if they open mouth and they make a sound, it can mean two different things. So how do you differentiate between an alarm call, or it's just a pleasure call, or it's just this other call? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
There are some various components of the sound that needs to be checked. So the frequency of the two sounds may be the same. The amplitude may be the same. The pitch may be the same. But at the end of the day, there will be one particular sound feature that will be different. So if you look at the first work I presented, those authors, they use 5 sound features to differentiate between the LD chicken and the ones with bronchitis and Newcastle. But at the end of the day, it was only 2 that they could use to decipher between LD and infected beds. They use spectral flatness, they use wavelet entropy, they use wavelet energy, they use Kestrel coefficient. So if you check a lot of all these sound features, they are never going to be the same for 2 different calls. And that brings us to one of the limitations. You don't know the one to pick out of these many. That is number 1. Then number 2, we can also combine vocalization with maybe some physiological measures. For example, in one of the papers, the authors, they combine vocalization and the use of cortisol to validate what they have from vocalization. Then, if it is possible to look at all the sound features, one will definitely get differences. But that is very difficult. Because if that software may have this feature and this other software does not have that feature. For example, SAP 2011 has entropy. I don't think raven light has entropy. And entropy is what these authors use to differentiate the infected animals from the healthy animals. So if one can consider all the sound features, then validate your results by comparing with other means, then one will get the differences between the two vocalizations.
Thank you. Akiyemi Rukayat, kindly unmute. Rukayat. Okay.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, sir, for the beautiful presentation, sir. I must say a very big thank you to the organizers of this program. In fact, I've been waiting. This is a very great opportunity for me to clear my doubt about vocalization in laying birds. But I've been really waiting for an opportunity like this. I've been wanting to know if there is any scientific view or any research on the relationship between the vocalization of laying bird before laying and the tendency to lay. That I mean that I have some laying flock here, and I've been observing ever since I started the poultry farming that sometimes in the morning prior to laying of the birds, I observe that they'll make a series of vocalization. Then my observations do go in line with the quantity of eggs that will be laid on that day. Sometimes when vocalization is much in the morning before laying, the quantity of eggs that I'm going to harvest on that day would be much. Then sometimes when that vocalization is not, maybe when there is no much vocalization, I realize that the birds may not lay very well on that day. But recently I was telling a friend, explaining that to a friend, but the person said she is not sure. She also has a poultry farm, near poultry. So she said she hasn't been observing that. I said, I've been observing this thing, and I don't know if my observation, if it's just my own observation, or if there's any scientific view or any published work regarding this. So that's why I asked that question, to know if truly it's just my own, if it is just my own observation, or it's something that is really scientific. That if birds make such sound that day, are they going to lay? Will it affect the tendency to lay? Or if they do not make the sound, does it mean that they're not going to lay on that particular day? Thank you very much, sir, for the. So I think with the response, I've got a backup that yes, that the birds they make sounds prior to laying.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Let me also add, you know, the interval between one oviposition and the other is 26 hours. So if you, for instance, if you have a flock of 100 hens, there is the possibility that, you know, it's not 24 hours, so they don't lay every day. It is 26 hours. So yes, your observation may be right. So there's the tendency that maybe 80% of them lay on a particular day. Yes. While, you know, the lower percentage on the other days. So every laying hen, I have noticed that will always make vocalization. When a hen has reached that sexual stage of laying, they have that particular sound that they give. Dr. Weto, am I correct? They have that particular sound that you know that this is a laying bed, or it is close to laying, or have started laying. They have that particular sound that they give. So the day that you observe that most of them are making that sound, there is the possibility that you have a higher proportion of the flock that would lay that day. So that observation, I think, makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yes. Yes.
You see, I observe that if you are not very careful, if you are not used to the sound, the sound they make, and there's I mean a laying hen, the sound they make and the sound of danger. Because if a laying hen make a sound after, then you know that animal has laid. If you are not very careful, you would think it's a danger, because the way they sound is like they make that sound that they have laid. So if you are not very careful, but I know if you are in a layer's pen, if they started making, when they lay, if one lay make that sound, another one lay. So the more the sound sometimes is also the more, is directly proportional to the number of eggs. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir.
This. If two vocalizations sound similar, their features are not similar. That is why we have software that can analyze all these components of sound.
Yeah.
So the pitch, the frequency, the amplitude, the entropy, or some other things, all the duration will be different.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Thank you. So is there any other comment from the participants? Thank you, Rukayat, for that wonderful observation. Thank you. Gideon Ajibola, thank you for moderating our session today. I really appreciate that. Dr. Weto, thank you for joining. Barnabas Babalola, thank you so much. I hope your exam is going well. We'll be proud of you. So Otibe Okon, thank you for joining us from Calabar, right? Fami from Indonesia, we appreciate you. Abayomi Tomori, thank you. Kolade Oliide, you're welcome. Akpan Kao, you're welcome. JPNP, I don't know who that person is, but you're welcome. Ayu, we appreciate you. Sanda Mufoyeke, you're welcome. Abdurrahman Safian from Ghana, you're welcome. Professor Sanusi, you're welcome. Ojela Deshun, welcome. Temitayo Eletu, you're welcome. Professor Okonlade Lawal Adebowale, you're welcome. And Dr. Oyebanji Fumilala. So if there are no comments, we would like to end today's meeting. Once again, I appreciate our guest speaker, Dr. Durosaro Olutunde Samuel. Thank you for the wonderful and insightful presentation. A round of applause. Thank you so much. And